Hello and a very warm welcome to this latest edition of Talking Germany. My guest today is a man who has never been a professional musician, but is nevertheless at the helm of one of the greatest orchestras in the world. The orchestra in question is the Berlin Philharmonic, and the man I'm talking about is right here with me now, Martin Hoffmann.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us here today on Talking Germany.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure for me too. Great stuff. Now, Martin Hoffmann might not be a musician by profession. In fact, he started out as a lawyer before carving out a career in commercial TV management. And for the past 3 years or so, he's been the general manager of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. What's more, he is the person that this glorious institution, one that simply oozes tradition, is hoping will guide it into the future. You're nodding. I've got it right. Yeah?
I hope so.
You have said, Martin Hoffmann, that the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, and I'm quoting, isn't just music. Yeah, it's an attitude, a philosophy, and a very special way of life, or of looking at life, I think you said. Yeah, describe that way of looking at life, that philosophy, that attitude.
Oh, I think the Berlin Philharmonic, all members of the Berlin Philharmonic, the musicians and the chief conductor or the conductors are really living music. And it's for them, it's part of their life. And it's part of their belief that music can give some help or support your daily life. And it's for them, it's a must to hear music and to make music and to give something back to the society, which is absolutely, in their understanding, necessary. What
a wonderful description, giving help and support in everyday life. A major symphony orchestra. I love it. I love it. Yeah, fantastic.
If it is like this, it's the best thing we can do.
Great stuff. You, of course, your role, I mean, not your role, where you're coming from. You came from commercial TV.
Right.
In commercial TV, entertainment is a very big factor. How much of a factor for the orchestra is entertainment?
Oh, I would say that's not the most important thing that we are doing. Entertainment, the self-understanding of the orchestra is really to make the best music, to be on a and our target group is not so wide and big. We are really making music for a certain kind of people which are really interested in this kind of music. And for this, we want to provide them with the best music and the best orchestra you can imagine. And so entertainment is not the right word. What we try to do is to open the society or to open people for our music, to find that they find our music quite interesting. And this is what we are doing, and we are not doing it with entertainment. We are doing every concert in the best way we can do, but we are using to get the younger audience, or you get a younger target group, or to get the upcoming generation into the concert hall. We try to do everything what you might call entertainment. We are using all new platforms, all new distribution opportunities, but it's not in this TV understanding entertainment.
OK, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that your target audience are people who take their music seriously. And
Absolutely.
Germans certainly do take their music seriously. So my next question is, to what extent is the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra a German orchestra?
Quite interesting. Let me, if you want to have the precise figures, it's quite easy to explain.
OK, good place to start.
Yeah, we have 128 members, musicians.
Yeah.
And they are coming round about now close to 30 nations. So, and actually the majority of the musicians are still Germans. But it's more or less half and half. When I have it, when I count it right, it's more than 60 musicians still coming from Germany.
OK, I'm going to break you off there because there's lots of things we need to talk about there in a little bit. And the most important word in what you just said was the word still, because something is happening there, something is changing. OK, you've had your first impressions there from Martin Hoffmann. Here is more.
After 4 years as general manager of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, Martin Hoffmann says his task is as complex as a Mahler's symphony. The 54-year-old from southwest Germany has been interested in music since childhood. He played violin in a youth orchestra and has always sought contact to musicians.
Guten Tag, mein Chef.
Das ist eine hervorragende Vorstellung. Das kommt sehr gut.
He left the youth orchestra behind to study law, but he maintained a subscription to the Berlin Philharmonic. For 10 years, he worked in the commercial television sector, eventually becoming the managing director at the Sat.1 network. In 2010, he returned to his old love, classical music, in architect Hans Scharoun's Philharmonie.
Scharoun included these fascinating details. This here is like a ship's portal.
With his wealth of experience, Hoffmann is steering the Philharmonic into the digital age. One example is the Digital Concert Hall, where 6 cameras broadcast every concert live via the internet. It's exclusive content for the more than 15,000 paying subscribers worldwide. Hoffmann has also introduced public screenings in cinemas, making classical music accessible to everyone. His motto is excellent, not elitist. And late-night concerts are accessible via a mobile app. Martin Hoffmann can concentrate on management and marketing and leaves the artistic decisions up to the musicians and their head conductor Simon Rattle. Still, he enjoys accompanying the orchestra on its guest appearances around the world. It's a dream job in a place that's bursting with musical history.
This is the Karajan entrance, my entrance. The funny thing is that Karajan had it installed to allow him the shortest possible route to and from the stage. And sometimes while the audience was still applauding, he was already in his car on his way home.
Today, he's our guest on Talking Germany, Martin Hoffmann.
And you know what? We were just talking about it being a dream job or not, and he said, Martin Hoffmann said, "Oh, it's not a dream job. It's not a dream job." Yeah.
No, I didn't. No, it's completely wrong. Certainly it's a dream, but in every job you have something to do. It's not always, not 12 hours a day a dream job, okay. But 10 hours per day it's a dream job.
I was just pulling your leg. At the end there, you were talking about Herbert von Karajan and his little sort of escape route out of the Philharmonie. To what extent does the spirit, let's call it the spirit of Herbert von Karajan, still exercise an influence over the building and the orchestra?
First of all, not I think the main influence he has actually is the buildings. The other, it's still his kind of making music. It's very interesting that round about 30 musicians performed or played under Herbert von Karajan. Yeah. And one of the most exciting things you can have, or most interesting discussions, is if you talk to these musicians, everybody has a personal impression, a personal experience, and a certain and very convinced opinion about Herbert von Karajan. And they told me that so in the DNA of the orchestra is still something from Herbert von Karajan. He was for so many years.
What is that something? Because there's the quote in the report, which I think is quite interesting, and I know it's very close to your heart, almost your sort of motto, not elitism, but excellence.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I mean, Herbert von Karajan, for all his merits, and I saw him conduct, and I could sense, really a long way back in the chamber, a long way from the man himself, I could sense his charisma and the marvel of the music. But elitism was also a part of sort of his package, was it not?
Yes, I think so. It was, he really had something like this. And for example, he established the Salzburg Festival. And it was definitely a festival, not for everyone. It was for a really upper class. And, but at the same time, he opened the music, or he distributed the music to everybody. For example, you have this triangle Berlin Philharmonic, Deutsche Grammophon, and Herbert von Karajan, which was in a certain period in the 70s.
In the 70s, it was
It was, yeah. I was young, and my parents bought all these discs, and it was classical music. Was this triangle, Berlin Philharmonic and Herbert von Karajan. But what they still have, and this is a serious answer, they have the understanding of making music, still coming from this time. And there are a lot of changes, but they can remember the sound, and they can remember how to make music and how to listen to each other. And it's a certain quality that it is still, it's not in every interpretation. It's totally, now you hear a Beethoven cycle completely different, or Brahms is totally, from other conductors, completely different as Herbert von Karajan did it. But it's so the way of making music, of being together, and as well to do the best what they can do in every concert is still something what they have in mind.
Okay. The new principal conductor, he has been the principal conductor for quite a while. We're actually now talking about him leaving the orchestra, is Sir Simon Rattle. He has changed the orchestra around.
Absolutely.
When you arrived at the orchestra, Sir Simon said of you, Martin Hoffmann will help us to redefine the role of the orchestra in the 20th century.
That's too big.
Well, that's what he said, yeah?
Yeah.
It was a major vote of confidence in you as a person. It's the kind of thing he's got to say, of course. But can you, for me, define the redefining? What do you aspire to achieve?
What we had in mind, and what is the discussion, is still ongoing discussion in the orchestra, and what is really something which is in our mind, and what we have to think is how we can get a younger audience, how we can get the upcoming generation. You know, when we both... or when I was young, it was part of my education to hear classical music. I have to practice violin. Or I had music in school, and I went with my parents to operas and concerts. And this is actually not in the way I had it. You can't compare it with with our time or in our times. Yeah. And so we and the whole institution try to figure out how we can get, or we can make our music, or can create an interest, a strong interest, and in the best way, a passion for our music.
And how do you do it? How do you do it?
You have to use...
I mean, the easiest way would be to get David Garrett, who was here...
No, it's not. This is exactly...
No, great guy,
he's a great violin player, but it's definitely...
Bring him in, and you've got the young folks coming in.
No, it's not the way we are doing it.
Okay.
Besides this, David Garrett is an excellent musician, an excellent violin player, and he grew up, he was one of the most talented violinist in the world. But,
absolutely.
What we're trying to do is to open the program as well. We are doing this modern music, and we are offering new formats such as late night music. Last time we had late night music, we started with the idea, and we have had at the first concert 500 people. And so we decided free seating and 10 euros, one ticket, and it was so we expected, okay, it starts at 10:30. We will get 300, 400, 500 people. And the third concert we had in the row, in the form, is late night concert, we had more than 1,500 people.
Wow.
And we had to close the doors because people have seen the first as a prime time concert, the 8 o'clock concert, and 1,300 people were standing outside and knocking on the door. And so it was quite a dangerous situation as well. This is a way we try, or one example, how we try to make our music accessible. We are doing in 2 months' time, for the first time, an open-air concert just in front of the Philharmonie.
Oh, yeah.
And we are working together with all other cultural institutions, museums and libraries, which are located in this wonderful place. And this is other chance to improve.
And how often do you go to the concerts at the Philharmonie?
Well, normally on a regular basis. We are doing, in one season, close to 90 concerts in a year. That means 30 programs. And one program I see, or one concert I see every time, or so far, most of the time, I'm seeing it twice.
Lucky man. And do you have your own seat?
Absolutely. It's,
Really?
Yeah.
And where is it?
it's very well located. Because I have the chance and the ability
Front row,
to
second
move
row, third
quite,
row, yeah.
Quite quick.
I think the
and
best
fast
seats,
out of the hall.
the best seats are in about row 10, I would say, in the middle. That's where I like to
Exactly
sit.
where I am seated.
Okay, I'll look out for you next time I go. You don't want to be an elitist orchestra, so you have cheap seats.
We have low price seats, I would say. And
what's the difference between cheap and low price?
Yeah, but it's, the quality of the seats is, and this is a very good invention Sharon made for the first time in this hall, in this concert hall. He built something like a democratic concert hall, and this means not even one seat is farther than 33 meters from the stage. There are different views, certainly, and but one of his really thoughts and his strong beliefs that he should create a democratic concert hall, and because of this, I have problems if you're saying cheap seats. We would not. We want. And by the way,
just give our viewers an idea, though, of what are the cheapest seats, because I know this is important to you. How much do they cost?
We have from 10 to 17 euros, the cheapest seat, and it's very close to a ticket for cinemas. And we make this accessible, or we are offering for every concert seats and tickets in this category. Yeah. And so the highest or in the best seats are sold in the highest category between 90 and 125 euros.
Just tell me a little bit about the building. Is it a good? I mean, it's clearly for the audience. It's an intimate place, no matter where you're sitting. I absolutely take your point that it's a very democratic auditorium. Is it a good auditorium? We've heard the acoustics are famously good, but is it a good place for the musicians to play?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because they travel the world. They can compare.
And this is very interesting because they feel really as a Berlin Philharmonic is their home.
Ah, yeah.
And it is in their hearts, and it's their place to perform. And very interesting, and one of the most interesting discussions we have when we decide where to tour or where we want to go, in which city we want to go, is how is the acoustics?
Really?
And there are definitely some destinations not really in our mind because the acoustic is not so good. And for example, the Berlin Philharmonic is an example, is copied so many times internationally. Yeah. So
like the Sydney Opera House is often quoted, yeah.
No, but it's the whole old architecture. Yeah. Look at Century Hall in Japan, for example. Gewandhaus in Leipzig. It's the same idea, same basic construction. We have it in Disney Hall in Los Angeles. Sure. It's really coming from this genius invention. From Hans Scharoun. And we are so...
Can you remember your first visit to the... I can literally remember when I think I was 17 years old and I went to the Berlin Philharmonic for the first time, to the Philharmonie, yeah. And I can remember sort of... Because from outside, there are two different sort of... It's sort of like a split personality. From outside, it's very metallic.
Yeah.
And quite brash, yeah. And inside, it's very, there's a lot of wood and it feels extremely comfortable, but there's something breathtaking about it.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's the same experience I made. If you're coming to see the building, it's so, you can't compare it with any other architecture in the world. It's so unique and it's a certain style. And you know when you see it, it's Scharoun building. Yeah. And, but interesting, if you're going to the foyer, for example, you see, or you can imagine that this building is created in the early, or let's say, in the last century. You have the feeling that you have a certain kind of atmosphere, a certain kind of, you can see.
But then there is the danger.
But when you go in the hall.
Yeah, but there's the danger at some stage that the building is going to become a little bit of a museum item.
Or not at all. Not at all. This I don't know. This I wouldn't say. This only concerns the foyer, so far as I feel it. Maybe you have another impression, but when you go into the hall, you can't. If you close your eyes and you ask yourself, which time this building is created or made, you can't really answer it.
True.
It's
Good point.
still really actual, and it's
It could
really
even be
modern.
sometime in the future.
It's modern.
Almost.
Yeah, it's modern.
Okay. Even the biggest and the best orchestras need big names as soloists. And one of the undoubted superstars of contemporary classical music is the Chinese pianist Lang Lang. And last year, the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra got together with the maestro to record their first CD together. Let's listen in just a wee little bit to Bartók. It's the second piano concerto.
82.
We make little corrections, like someone restoring a painting. What can we make better? What's important? What's not coming out? Lang Lang and I would go and listen and say, oh my God, that sounds different than we thought, which often happens. You think some things which weren't coming out sound very exaggerated, and other things you don't hear at all.
Yeah, we get, oh God, this is not good, this. We get slow to, both of us, too soon. And
yeah, it's false.
Not sure what he said there. Did he say it's forced or it's false? But it was interesting to observe the two of them there together, working so closely together. What would you say? Would you say the Berlin Philharmonic and Lang Lang is a marriage made in heaven? Or is it more problematic than that?
No, not at all. It's Lang Lang is one of our wonderful soloists who is performing on a regular basis, and he is a big star in the classical world. But it's so we are doing regarding piano soloists. We are doing it with great other musicians as well.
Yeah.
Christian Zimmermann we have had. It was a wonderful concert. Herbert von Karajan, we are going actually with him to Baden-Baden, to the new festival. So Lang Lang is one of our most, or one of our very interesting.
It's interesting. Well, I've got a quote from you. One reviewer said of the CD that was being recorded there, it said, it all gives a whole new meaning to the words flash, bang, wallop. Yeah, that sounds a little bit more like entertainment, and a little bit less like the stately.
We should
Berlin
repeat this discussion concerning entertainment, but it's interesting that some pianists in Berlin have a certain audience. And for example, Andras Schiff, we are doing on a regular basis recitals in the Chamber Music Hall. It's unbelievable. It's sold out in a second. And Maurizio Pollini is coming, or was 2 weeks ago with us, and it's the same.
Not too long ago, yeah.
And actually, we have Herbert von Karajan, who is just, or Radu Lupu was there last week. And in Berlin, you can say some soloists have a certain audience, and they are coming every time when they have the chance to hear these musicians.
OK, we mentioned the fact already that, because we saw Sir Simon Rattle working there with Lang Lang together. It was very interesting to see them in their sort of leisure gear, yeah? Sir Simon is leaving the orchestra by 2018, yeah?
Right.
What does that mean for the orchestra?
It's one of the most important decision is who is the chief conductor and musical director. And so we have had only a few after this in the last 60 years. And so it's a discussion and it's a decision made as well by the orchestra.
Yeah.
By every musician has one vote.
128 votes.
128, yes.
And who's your favourite? What have you been hearing? What are the rumours?
Absolutely, there are a lot of rumours, and you can't comment.
Christian Thielemann, another former guest here on Talking Germany, has been mentioned.
Without telling you even one name, as you can imagine, that I never would do so. But what I can really see, and what you can regarding the history of the decisions of the orchestra, it was always a very intelligent, from time to time surprising, and a good decision for the institution. And I have a deep confidence, and I trust these 128 musicians that they've made it again, and it will be in the course of the next year.
Okay, we look forward to the outcome of that decision. I'm very
Same
intrigued
here.
myself, yeah. Youth Makes Music. You used to be a musician, a junior musician yourself. Did you ever take part in this?
I was just very close to take part in this competition, but one of the reasons I didn't become professional musicians was because I was not so talented to take part in these competitions.
What did you most enjoy playing when you were a youngster?
What kind of piece?
What kind of pieces, yeah.
At the end, it was Akolai A-Moll concert. It was and Johann Sebastian Bach. I did wonderful pieces, and but it was work to do, and it's really hard to become or to get the knowledge to play such an instrument. And
I mean, it's clear that this programme is really pretty competitive. Do winners from this programme, or have former winners, or youngsters who have taken part in this programme, have they actually made their way into the Philharmonic?
Indeed.
Yeah?
I don't know exactly the number, but many of our musicians are, or at least they won this competition. But then it's a first step. And then, yes, they have to study and to improve their skills.
That's interesting. So, I mean, but it shows that the programme is actually very effective.
Very strong. Yeah? It's really strong.
And on top of that, the BPO has its own music academy.
Yeah? Yes.
Well, that's quite unusual. I don't think most major orchestras don't. You know, what's the function?
Yeah, it was an invention as well. From Herbert von Karajan, and he decided, okay, we need how we can do in our times or in difficult times, how we can make the next musicians coming, or to get the right musicians for the orchestra. And this is a post-studies school or opportunity to improve the skills on the instrument. And one of the I would say exactly 30 members actually performing in the orchestra has made this trainee program or this postgraduate studies at the academy.
So it's a pretty direct route into the orchestra.
Pretty directly. Yeah. And then we have a wonderful situation. Just half a year ago, they were looking for the position of the first solo cellist. And it's really something in the music world to become this position. Yeah. And the audition took part, and finally a member of the academy took over and won this competition. It was
unexpectedly, coming in ahead of some other...
coming from this...
the real favourite
this stage of his career, and he gets really very important and wonderful position. That means this academy, we have actually 25 people who are having this scholarship, and they are coming from all over the world.
That's interesting. This is because we've got to go back to that point that we mentioned earlier, that you said that the majority of the musicians in the orchestra are still Germans, and that seemed to indicate that from the new intake, there's probably a majority who are not Germans. Has that got anything to do with the fact it's often said that the young German musicians these days aren't hungry enough? They're not determined and ambitious enough to compete?
Not on this level. And if you have a look, we have 28 nations altogether. There is not a majority coming, what you might have in mind, coming from Asia. It's absolutely not our last bass player is coming from Ukraine, I think.
Ukraine.
It's really, we have members from all nations in Europe and worldwide. And regarding the German musicians, what musicians told me, members of the orchestra, what they are telling me is that the quality and the way how they are able to play is so unbelievable, technically, and even on this level, musically. They are really, really, really outstanding performances you can hear in these auditions. And this improved over the last 20 years.
Okay.
And but it's absolutely the top level we are looking for and we are getting.
Have you ever thought about going to a monastery? Seeking refuge from the modern world in a monastery?
To be quite open and honest to you, a clear no.
A clear no, yeah. When did you, what is the tougher job, the one you used to have in commercial TV or the one you have today? And what's the comparison between the two? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody who actually moves between two very different fields.
First of all, they're really different. And so the most important thing in my times in private television or as running a private TV production company was at the end, and these times changed so tremendously over the last years. It was such a clear focus at the end for commercial aspects.
Yeah.
When I started my career in the private TV business, it was more content-driven. We could do so many things you would never believe in our days that this could happen. And after all these years, then it was such a pressure to get the right figures and to make under economic aspects.
And when you were working there, where did you get your spiritual nourishment from, or did you go without spiritual nourishment?
My spiritual nourishment for the music or for the Berlin Philharmonics, I've got in a long-lasting relations to this orchestra and to the musicians. And in my TV career, it was really, if you have had an idea, if you can generalize it, you have had the chance to realize it. In this time, it was possible, and we were just at the beginning, and there were no concrete rules how to produce and what you have to produce. It was kind of time for try to figure it out what could work and what not, and it was an open mind situation. And I remembered we had an idea to do a program live from an island because we were convinced it's a good idea, and we did it
live from an island.
Live from an island.
What was the island?
It was very. It was in the southern part of Europe, and it was, but it was possible. This is what I would like to mention.
Yeah.
And if you compare it, you can't compare it with my actual professional situation. What you could learn from my early or from my former career is how to handle and how to stars and create and big creative people, and how to handle this and how to come to a certain agreement, because we need the best soloists, conductors in the world for this orchestra, for the future, and we are in competition with other orchestras, and this is what you have to do in my position.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. We'll move on to our quiz, our traditional quiz at the end of the show. Quick questions, relatively quick answers. What's more important for the BPO, entertainment or education?
Education.
Who do you prefer, Bruckner or Beethoven?
Bruckner.
Well, great. Elvis or Chuck Berry? I know you're a rock and roll man as well.
No question, Chuck Berry.
Good choice. Is classical music a dying art or an art for the future?
the best art for the future.
From the past, yeah. That is your lot with Martin Hoffmann and his 2 careers so far. You never know, he might have a 3rd one up his sleeve somewhere. Great guest. If you've enjoyed his company as much as I have, come back next week. Bye-bye. Cheers.